Hey everyone, welcome to Rockin' Dead, the premiere of our fourth show here on YouTube. Yes, I've said four and no more after that, but everyone knows me as a big Walking Dead fan here, and I thought, you know what, let's do this, and maybe throughout the evening we'll kind of tell you the funny story of how this whole concept originated, or something I thought I was going to take credit for and say I had a great idea for another talk show, and then it's the wife who actually says, remember when I told you to do that? So Lew, you probably agree with me here. First of all, before I just ask Lew a question, I'll introduce my very good friend, Lew Temple, who many of you know as Axel in season 3 of The Walking Dead. Lew, how are you, my friend?
I'm fantastic, and I appreciate you having me on the inaugural run of the Rocking Dead television show. And I would say you're ambitious. You're nothing if not ambitious by building your fourth show. So here we are. Thanks for allowing me to be part of it. It's exciting. I'm out here in sunny Southern California. We had a 90-degree day. Summer never ends. In fact, it feels like it's getting hotter. The earth is burning up on the West Coast. But we're thankful and we're grateful. But all good. It's Rocktober, October 1st.
Beautiful.
And that means we're coming ever nearer to the season premiere of Walking Dead.
I know, it's 6 days away.
Crazy, right?
It is, and we're going to talk deeply about that tonight too. And this is one of the cool things, folks. The cool thing about many of the actors, I want to say probably every actor and cast member, crew, everything on that show, not only they invested in their jobs and their roles, they're just as big of fans, if not more, than we are. And Lew, I know you had an early exit on the show, but I know you're one of the biggest super fans out there, and I know you try to take that in as often as you can, wherever you can. And I think that's probably kind of consistent with many of the cast, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, no question. Everybody is devoutly committed and interested in the show's progress. You never meet anybody who was on the show and is no longer on the show that doesn't continue to follow the show. It becomes enmeshed in your interest or your being. Look, it's a family, and it's the family that you're always a member of no matter what. So you're always going to be in interest. I find it entirely interesting now to meet new cast members, and I try not to get any inside information because, as you said, I'm an audience member now, and I like to experience it the same way as everyone else. But I also like to get insight on how the evolution of the show's production has occurred. In other words, here's how we used to do it. Do you still do that? Yeah, as a matter of fact, we do. Oh, good. Then we got that right. Oh, no, we figured out a new way to do this, and it's so much more efficient. Oh, wow, how come we couldn't figure that out? Well, because you were season 3 and you were just dealing with walkers back then and not different sects of people. So, yeah, I'm entirely interested in The Walking Dead, not just as a show, but as a production. As the story, yes, but also the mechanics of how it continues to operate and succeed, man.
Doing well. They're going to season 9, which is fantastic. And like you say too, there's some things, the old things where don't break or don't fix what's not broke. So maybe something
Right.
they would do with production that works. They've learned some new techniques. Just like with me here on the show, being with my fourth show, I've learned so much from the first 3 that I've put everything plus the kitchen sink into this one. And as I was telling you, like, because I'm such a passionate fan of Walking Dead, it was and plus it was you coming on the show. I mean, I know you very, very well. And first of all, there's no thanks necessary to have you on the show because, I mean, you and I go back a few years, and I really respect you. I admire you. Like, you want to talk about work ethic. I mean, there's a link down down below in the description to Lew's IMDb profile, plus his Facebook and Twitter and Instagram as well too. But have a look at the roles Lew has done. And there's many roles you probably didn't even know that he did, some animations and voiceovers and things like that. Phenomenal. But you know what? I couldn't have thought of a better guest. I mean, even Andrew Lincoln, to have you as...
let's not dive on that grenade. You get Andrew Lincoln, you better just ask me put me on hold.
Okay.
And set your show up with Andy Lincoln. But
No,
yeah,
but
no.
seriously, where I'm going with that is the fact that you kind of spearheaded a lot of these things back in the day. Back with James and Eric with the Walker Stalkers when they're. We'll talk about them tonight as well too. So it's an absolute honor. And hey, we're the Mustache Brothers from the Broadstache Club as well too. So
I'm thinking yours is much more resplendent than mine these days. I've had to kind of adjust mine for several roles.
Yep.
You can shave it off. When's last you shaved your mustache, Eric?
Funny that you asked me that, because about a month back, I went through one of these phases where, it was just starting to look kind of awkward. I'm sure you've had some awkward mustache days. I said, all right, so let's get rid of it and we start fresh again. And I had it back about 5 days later. And so it's pretty quick.
Oh, yeah. Mine doesn't grow like that by any stretch of the imagination. So good on your heritage and genes.
That's my dad.
But I find it, if we're going to just have a little mustache conversation, I find that not wearing a mustache is actually rather awkward. In other words, I have the type of face, or I've become the type of face to people's observation that is missing something if I don't have a mustache. My nose is too big, my face is too little. And so I need that mustache to kind of attach all of the points. And it's odd when I don't have one. And yet I keep trying. Now, that being said, I notice, like you, I'm getting some experience that shows up in my mustache.
That's
in other
right.
words, some salt and pepper. And occasionally I've recognized I'm going to shave just to get rid of that. But that's quite in vogue, the salt and pepper, and you're wearing it well, Eve. So good on you. Keep driving it.
I have more salt and pepper. I'm trying to balance out that shaker, but it's just not happening.
It's going fine.
It's okay.
I think it's unique.
If I had short hair and if I was to do a Halloween costume, I would dye my hair and the mustache red. I could probably pull off a pretty good Abraham Ford.
You could pull off a fantastic Abraham.
I need more muscle in the arms, but I mean, other than that, I could fake that with some padding or something.
And you've got a little Tom Savini in you.
Okay, that's cool.
You could do a little Tom Savini, Dust Till Dawn. That's quite good. Any of the Highlander characters, we could drop you into Game of Thrones in a second. Rob Zombie would appreciate you. He would, he puts you in one of the mayhem scenes in 3 from Hell. The Walking Dead would, you're kind of a savior right now. So, I'm not sure. Maybe you could show up as a whisperer. Oh, I bet you'd be a good whisperer.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. We're going to talk about those badasses a little bit later tonight too. That's going to be something else.
I think so too.
But we're going to say hi to some bunch of people over in the chat in a quick second. But before we do that, you told me, personally off the air, some things that you've been up to lately. And I'd like to just kind of catch up a little bit and you can share with our viewers. You were doing yet another pilot, which is insane. And then you were off over to, was it Scotland for a little bit? Can you share us a little bit about both of those things?
Yes. I was in Birmingham, Alabama, for all you listeners in the South, Sweet Home, Alabama. And was doing a pilot called Eye for an Eye, which is a spec pilot that we're hoping Hulu does, in fact, have an interest in. It's a redemption piece. Think, if you will, John Walsh, who built the America's Most Wanted, if instead of just exposing the criminal, the government hired a outside consulting firm to exterminate that said criminal, similar to maybe Mr. Bush's Blackwater group.
Okay.
And in the stealth of the night, this special ops team comes in and takes care of business, but in a very public way, eye for an eye.
Gotcha.
Now, the lead of the show has had a family member, a son, that, like Mr. Walsh, has been abducted and killed, unfortunately. But the man comes home and he speaks to his son every night in his son's room. And we come to find out, like I see dead people, the sun isn't actually there. So the man's kind of going through some machinations of madness. So it's rather cool. It's rather violent. We'll see how it plays out. I play the lead's brother, and we take care of. I don't want to call it vigilante justice because we're hired by the government, but we use unclear methods to take care of that process. So that was that. Scotland, on the other hand, and I got myself a beautiful. I got this from my father for his birthday. This is Talisker. This is Rusty Water or Scotch for you that are or Scottish background.
Okay.
This is the West, the Isle of Skye. It's exceptionally lovely, and I can't wait to present it to my father.
Mm-hmm.
Scotland is great for any of those of you who have been or are planning to go. Do it. They're lovely, lovely people. I was there doing a convention, meeting the Scots in Glasgow.
Nice.
Glasgow. Oh, it was good fun. It was. And it was there signing autographs. And we had Ezekiel with us. We had Jerry with us.
Nice.
We had Gavin with us and Jared and Axel. So that group of mustachioed men were there.
Yeah, that's a lot of mustaches.
And so what was fun, again, was to be able to speak to those gentlemen who are still on the show, Kari and Cooper, and also speak to those who have just left the show in the form of Joshua and Jason Warner-Smith. And so just to kind of glean information about what's not spoilers. I have no idea what we're coming up to. Just my own ideas. I don't have any inside information because I like keeping it that way. So that was great. There's an amazing movie, since you asked, on Netflix. It's on Netflix now. It's called The Endless. And it's built by two young boys named Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. It is a science fiction psychological cult movie about the Heaven's Gate group that are caught in a time loop. They never went away with the Halley-Bob comet, and they come back every 10 years. It's quite a mind meld, and it will change your night. So I ask you to rent that.
Okay.
I've got another great movie out on Blu-ray through IFC with Scout Taylor Compton and Olivia Lucaderi called Feral. It's a bit of a cabin in the woods creature feature, except rather smart because the young people infected are physicians and they recognize what's best, what is their civic duty to not bring the virus back into civilization. So I'm excited about that. And then a movie that, two movies that are in festivals this currently, one being The Iron Orchard, which is an old rags to riches story in excavation of oil. The old oil man roughnecking, similar to Giant, similar to There Will Be Blood, a true Texas oilman story.
Right.
Old derricks from 1940 to 1960. It's very cool. And then another dark comedy called Texas Cotton, which is a mystery, a suspense mystery. Those are both playing at the Austin Film Festival in October. And then a movie called Come Set the Night, which I'm really excited about and well behind, that is similar to Captain Fantastic, like Viggo Mortensen's dad raising children in the woods. And I'm raising these children under the premise of Greek mythology, to believe in these Greek gods and to understand why things happen because of Zeus and Aphrodite, and quite interesting. It's about coming of age and sexual repression. Those two things don't mix.
Yeah. You're busy. Like, I mean, that's a good thing. I'm sure you'd rather be, instead of sitting around twiddling the thumbs, you'd rather be working. And you tend to, like, I look at the IMDb all the time, and it's like pre-production, post-production, filming. It's like crazy. So hats off to you, man. And either you got one of the greatest agents, or you're just diligent, or whatever it is. But and actually you're a chameleon too. That's one of the things I love about you. You get into any role and you assume it, and it's like you studied that role for your life.
I feel like I have had a very, very beneficial opportunity in that people like to give me the chance to see what I might do with something. Mm-hmm. And I recognize that, and I try never to approach any one thing the same. Like, I don't look at it and go, oh, I know what this is. And, I'll pull out this bag of tricks to do that. And so I think that's what thrills me about this, in telling stories. And so as a musician, you're always telling a story through whatever chords you put together, whatever harmonies, the melodic melody, the time, all of these things are tone, or the way you're telling this story through your music, the way I'm telling this story through my character. And I'm trying to show up as a side man, typically. We talked about that earlier. Mm-hmm. So how do I serve this story? How does my character serve the story? How do I best serve the story? That's how I approach things. And then I do a lot of research, Eric, and then during that research, what turns me on is what I call discovery. So between pages 1 and 96, I kind of know, I know what's going to happen. It's the things that I don't. So if, you're playing a C major chord, you totally know what that is, but the modulation of, an E minor somewhere in between, that's the tickle, that's the oh. And I'm always looking for those ahas, mm-hmm. and that's what turns me on about what I do, is the discovery. And I think that is the gift that I get. So many people say, oh, your job allows you to, and my job allows me to be human. The human essence, I think, is to discover. I mean, it's called fishing, right? It's mm-hmm. not called catching.
Yeah.
It's hide and go seek, not hide and go find.
Yeah.
We love not knowing and looking. And so go west, young man. These things I understand now to be our essence. And I get to do that quite often. So yes, I have a cool job because I get to play hide and seek with myself almost daily.
Yeah, on a treadmill again and again and again. And I like how you mentioned the bag of tricks. It almost seems like some days you leave your bag of tricks on the kitchen table as you go out the door to a shoot, and if you have to run back and get them, you got them, but you're going to get to that new shoot, and okay, it's a new trick that's going to be brought home with you to stick in that bag. And
it's delightful because oftentimes, so for instance, I had an acting instructor that used to say, pack your own chute. You have to pack your own chute, which of course means that if you're going to jump out of the plane, you want to know when you pull that ripcord that a bunch of pots and pans aren't going to come out.
Yeah.
Know there's a parachute in there, right? Mm-hmm. So pack your own chute. I do love that. That is the bag of tricks. But I also, more than that, I love the idea that I'm going to show up on Rob Zombie's set, and he's going to change the gig. He's going to flip the script and challenge me in a way where I haven't been challenged. So I can't bring in that Adam Banjo bag of tricks, because he's going to spin it on me and say, nope, Danny Trejo's doing the sweetheart and the fun colloquial guy. You're going to be the miserable git. And so that is really fun for me. And that's what I really appreciate. And I look for that. And I look for that for any of you that are listening that are writers out there. I look for that in your text. And I recognize when you write, writing should have its own voice, and not just yours, but all of those people's voices in there. Mm-hmm. And they should all be different. As you say out differently than I say out, oot and
Oot.
out these things, so too shall that script.
That's right.
You know, and so somehow when we mix Celtic music with good old fashioned hard chunky metal chords, we got to find a way to make those mix, and we will as great musicians, right? And so these are all parts that I adore with what I do I just call myself a storyteller. That's what I do.
No, it's beautiful too, and I love the way you're talking about how these things are written for us, and we're going to get into this pretty in depth later on tonight as well too. One of the writers that you've had the opportunity to work with even during your season, your time on the show, is Angela Kang, and she's been promoted up, and I know Glenn Mazzaro is always who you worked with very diligently throughout that season, was always an advocate for promoting that's what I'm looking for, promoting women writers. A lot of times they weren't given the chances that they so deserved, and women actresses and things like that too. But we're going to talk about her a little bit tonight and just talk about writing some serious stuff. She's written over 25 episodes, 27 I think, now the showrunner. I mean, congrats to her. And I really think we're going to see some wonderful things yet to come. And I mean, I certainly would not want her role. I mean, she's jumping into a show, and spoiler warnings just for everyone that's watching this now. We'll try to throw some spoiler warnings out a little bit, but there's characters leaving the show. So I mean, not only is she taking over as showrunner, she's got some holes to fill, and she's seemingly doing it with a smile. So and writing.
You're right, Eric. Sorry to interrupt.
No, good.
Everything about Angela Kang is in place already. She actually doesn't have to do anything. She's proved herself. She's already landed. She's Carol of the writing room. She's been there since day one. She's written episodes that are heavy. She's written episodes that are transitional. As a writer in the writer's room, day in, day out, Angela has been there. She doesn't have to do anything. She is the showrunner. She is the showrunner. The show's never been in better hands. She's great. One of the things when I was there in season 3 with Angela, she was carrying her first child. Okay?
Right.
So the main thing when I was on the show that we used to talk about at lunch and at dinners and socially as a group, we talked about the children of The Walking Dead, and particularly Carl. Okay? We recognized as adults we were all people that had had an experience of a world before this event, before this catastrophic event. And so our dreams, for instance, might have been playing baseball or running through the grass and swinging, or our first kiss, or going to high school prom, or all these natural things that we have thought of. And Angela, to me, always brought an element of not just humanity, but of matronly care, motherhood. And I actually think the show is as much about that. Though we've been following the gentleman for all this time, I sense that the show is ultimately about how to recreate. And that starts with Mama. And I think Angela is perfect for this show, as are any of the female characters, as they've proven, and any of the female directors and or writers that they've brought in. I don't think that's ever missed a beat and only ever helped the show, because it's still about being human at the end of the day in an inhuman environment, so to speak. And so I think there's never not a better person. Scott Gimple, who's run the show and also been there since day one as a writer. While I was there, I adore them both. And I'll never forget that Angela, I mean, really getting close to labor, she was there producing one of her episodes on set, and we were all like, oh my gosh, because it's very warm in Georgia.
Yeah.
And when you're that pregnant, it could only be uncomfortable. And she played through. And like Lori was playing through at that time.
That's right.
And there was such a symbiotic vibe that was real and supportive for Angela. And then we'd shoot the scenes with Sarah Wayne Callies and Lori and what we had to go through for these things. And so, yeah, I think it's quite unique. I think she's such a strong person. Unless you were there, you wouldn't know any of that.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I'm very appreciative of all that she does, and happy. She has a great smile. If you've ever met her or you ever see her, she has a great smile, and it's hard to smile on The Walking Dead.
I can imagine.
It's hard to smile. Not a lot of smiles.
Okay, I didn't know that, but I do know the fact that she's really into, she likes to geek out with all these interviews and podcasts and things like that as well. So I'm definitely extending an invitation to have her on, and I'd be honored. But yeah, and I think a lot of her, maybe the contagiousness that she's had, you talk about the strength, and that's a very cool way. You think we're looking at Rick all this time as, you know, as the sheriff leading us away, but maybe that's just a smoke and mirrors while we're thinking about, as you're talking about recreating what we had before. And you look at the strength that's come up through the ranks there. You know, Carol started off a very mild and meek, you know, an abused wife. And, you know, we just started watching season 1 again for this sole purpose, to get in the zone. And we'll talk a little bit about some thoughts about season 1 leading up to where we are today. And then, you know, fast forward to many, many years later, you know, Glenn getting to the Herschel's farm, meeting Maggie, and Michonne. I mean, so you take Carol, Michonne, and Maggie. There is some strength right there that I'm sure you or I would not want to necessarily tangle with in a fight.
No, absolutely. And, you know, Melissa McBride, who plays Carol, who has never changed, by the way.
I know, she's incredible.
Her character and her character's arc has been my favorite on the show. She hasn't changed, and she's as solid as the North Star. She's comforting and as even and as kind and hopeful as you'd ever want a fellow comrade and actor to be. But yes, you're right. She goes from a battered housewife to a little confused, you know, a ship stranded out to sea. You know, at some point when she was with me, you know, my sole purpose was to be the voice of the audience and say, look, you're a lesbian, clearly, because
the short hair.
Yeah, and to dispute that, which then gives her the, you know, and we move on to where she goes from figuring out how to save herself. She stood up, and I'm going to take care of myself, and now I'm going to take care of everyone around me. I'm going to take care of everyone around me, and I'm going to win. And she did that, which is the fortitude of motherhood. And I'm always a big advocate of that, because guess what we all have is mother.
Yeah.
And so that is something that she's had some really heavy lifting to do. I mean, really heavy lifting. And so, and controversial, make no mistake. And I have gotten into that with her on some of those things. Clearly, you know, when you're on that show, it's not that you're Melissa McBride or Lauren Cohen or Andrew Lincoln. You get some pages, and there's some things that don't, and we say this, that they don't sing well. You know, just don't sing well. These words don't fit in this chord of music, or it's kind of not my song. I don't really do this. They'll let it be known, and the writers are called in. Angela Kang is called in and asked to present, or let's talk about this. And that's why the show works, because they do consult ever so much, and they do they get it right. They get it right for everybody, and I think that's a credit to them to take the time to get it right, and the proof's in the pudding, as they say.
As opposed to shut up, read the line, let's get this, let's go.
Yeah, that never happens on that show.
That's good, and I think that's why it is a success. Yeah,
it never happens. You know who doesn't let that happen? Andrew Lincoln, the number one. If he senses, look, are you uncomfortable with that? Is that because let's fix that. Or let's talk about that, or let's get you comfortable with that. And that's not just with Melissa. That's everybody. Maybe someone that's in like me, Axel or something. He's well aware of the entire environment, and that's the sensitivity of a good artist, and he's entirely special, Andrew Lincoln. I mean, he really, I like to say he's the Tom Brady of The Walking Dead. If any football fans are out there.
Yeah, of course, the quarterback, sure, of course.
If they think Tom Brady's worthy, I'm going to get some blowback on that. He's a cheater. Andrew Lincoln is not a cheater.
Yeah.
And Andrew Lincoln is as hard a worker as I've ever seen on set of any actor. And he cares as much as any audience member out there.
Well, that's the thing too. Some of these actors, some of the roles in these, like some people don't really appreciate how some of these scenes work. There's sometimes there's 5-6 different actors, and you may not actually ever share a scene, even though you're in the show together that night, that episode. You may not even be on set that day with that particular actor or actress. But you were obviously would have to have been with Andrew Lincoln many times because of the prison scenes were hand-to-hand combat and some things like that, and you would experience that.
Say this. To your point, Eric, interestingly, and these are some of the things that I like to talk about. When I was on the show on season 3, we were just coming out of Herschel's farm, so they've been very reclusive and kind of solitary. And so we were new meat, so to speak. We were new blood as they found us in the prison. And then we went through those paces, and shortly thereafter there's Woodbury. But the point was, the show was still built around Sheriff Rick Grimes' task. Starting about just after Terminus, as we were getting into Alexandria, the show started to evolve and expand into bigger worlds. Yes, we always had Woodbury and the governor, but that vehicle was still what's Rick going to do with that. But now we've sort of expanded, and the show has many storylines and many other conflicts and issues outside of Rick, outside of Sheriff Grimes. There are stories that don't have any effect or he cannot affect. And when I was there, all roads led to Andrew Lincoln and Rick Grimes. So everything that was built that way. So for instance, that's a way the show has opened up and evolved. It's no longer Andrew Lincoln, Rick Grimes show, The Walking Dead. Now there's a variety of paths, of roads less traveled that we're going to take. And so I find that entirely interesting.
And they've done that so well too that technically, I know there's talk of another 10 years, not necessarily of The Walking Dead as we know it, but The Walking Dead universe, spin-offs and things like that. They've already done Fear, which we'll talk a little bit about tonight as well too. But you talk about these different paths that have been kind of foreshadowed and created. That could set off a nice Negan spin-off. It could set off, a story of the Whisperers. It could set off, what happened to Herschel growing up with the farm. All those things are written so well that it could easily make a spin-off.
There's a lot of material, as you say, and there's a lot of interesting. I always like John Sayles as a filmmaker, and I segue. I apologize.
No, please go ahead.
Connect the dots. I always felt that John Sayles movies always had really interesting subplots, sometimes even as interesting as the main storyline. And I think The Walking Dead is starting to find that that approach as well through, Mr. Kirkman's Bible in the graphic novels. And these characters are all really rich with lives that we're interested in and that we're entirely interested in. And so I think the show is doing more work than it's ever done, really.
Yeah.
And the work that's required, because they've started going this way, the work that's required now for the writer's room and the production is Herculean and difficult. People ask me about being on The Walking Dead. It's work. It is J-O-B. It is the greatest J-O-B, but it is work. And on Friday, which, by the way, is Saturday morning about 3 o'clock in the morning, when you're done with the work week, Friday going into Saturday, OT, there's a collective sigh of satisfaction and validation that you've done a good show. And you go home and you get some sleep and you wake up Sunday and you realize Monday's right around the corner. We got to start it all over again and do just as good, if not better, than the week we had done before.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle, but that's the thing. You get the right people and that are committed. That's why many of these many of your colleagues don't want to ever be killed off on the show, because I'm sure it is a paycheck, yes indeed, but it's you just want to get back there tomorrow and hit that home run again and again and again, and kind of nurture the younger cast members that are joining in, lend some advice to them, learn from them. It's a great family, and that's what they don't say it loosely when they say Walking Dead family. It is a family for sure.
It is entirely. That's one of the things, as I mentioned, that I like to sort of find out. Hey, what's going on these days? When I came to the show, Andrew Lincoln, John Bernthal, and Sarah Wayne Cowley sat me down, welcomed me with open arms, said, "We need you. You're here to help. This is what we do. Here's how we go about doing it. You're part of it. Shoulder this piece of wood and help us build." And that's what we pass along. Someday we're going to be gone. Will you remember to pass this along? Of which my short time, 10 episodes, I tried to, and/or I did. And I asked the other day if that was still, and it is. It's still the approach. You're sat down, you're brought in, hey, welcome. Because some shows you're treated a little bit as an outsider when you come in.
Sure.
You haven't been around. We've been here for 8 years. You're new. The invitation isn't always. But on this show in particular, it's really a gracious invitation, and you're accepted. And most times they already know your work.
Yeah.
They've heard you're coming. They know who you are.
Possibly a fan.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And so that's great. And they still do that. And I'm very proud to have been part of that and to have experienced it through the people that passed it on to me. So there is that. And then, as you said, Eric, it's about doing good work. We do a lot of work. It's not all good.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all good, but on this show it is all good. And so you're very proud of that. It's not often you get to always go out and do good work. And I think everybody recognizes and respects that for sure.
I would imagine with all the things that are on your roster, I mean, you've got some great stuff. And one of the personal things I love of yours, I love Unstoppable. I really thought your role was really cool in that one. It's one of my favorites. I also like Rango, and it took me a while to actually find out that you were in Rango. I love animated things. But I would imagine you'd probably put Walking Dead on a nice mantle on your shelf as far as a very special place in your life.
Yes, absolutely. When I was invited to be part of the show, I was doing a movie, The Lone Ranger, for Disney.
Oh, yes.
And I was still doing it, and I had a little window of opportunity to do a few episodes of The Walking Dead. We figured we could work it out. And the main thing was I had this crazy mustache on The Lone Ranger. And I was like, look, I can't shave this because I've got to go back and finish this movie. I'm on a big Disney movie, and you're just a little television show.
Right.
And they're like, no, we like your mustache. You can wear it here. And I'm like, oh, you're just saying that. I know I'm going to get into makeup and hair, and they're going to want to trim it. And really, I was just trying to solidify that they really wanted me, but and they did. I knew of The Walking Dead because originally it had come across my desk in the form of the graphic novel, and somebody had said, based on my horror pedigree, look at this. And I did, and I thought, wow, that's pretty violent. That's pretty intense. There's no way they'll be able to ever do this on television. Not even in cartoon form, but in animation, little did I know. So I was invited the very first time to come in and read for Merle. Maybe we talked about this.
Yeah.
But thankfully they found Michael Rooker. And then weeks later they brought me in again, the casting, and asked if I would read for Merle has a brother. We don't know his name. He doesn't have any lines, but read Merle's lines again, but just different, as if it was his brother. Thankfully, they found Norman Reedus to do Daryl. And finally, when Axel came around, they sort of had a sense of me, and they thought that I would be a good fit, and I appreciated that. So That being said, at season 3, The Walking Dead was very popular. Not quite at its apex, but heading there.
Sure.
And I don't think that I had any awareness. Certainly, I had no experience of what type of visibility it would create, nor did I have an awareness in that it would be so public to the point where I would walk down the street and people would go, "Hey, Axel, you're that guy." And that hadn't really happened to me a lot, and so it was cool and a little bit unnerving, a little bit like, "Hey, wow." Now, that being said, because the show films in Atlanta, Georgia, just south in Sonoya, I feel like it flies a little under the radar of Hollywood, so to speak.
True.
It flies a little bit under all the tabloid and a little bit under all of the on-set production. Here's what happened in The Walking Dead Today news. And I think that because it's left alone just enough, sure, there's a lot of people trying to scoop it, but that it's left alone just enough, I think that serves it quite well as well, Eric. I think that it's not so in the public eye of studio system Hollywood. It's able to do what it does best, and that's work.
Makes total sense. No, it does. It truly does.
It's like perfecting your band in the garage before you go out and tour.
That's right. Get it down, nail it.
Yeah, let's go cut this album in Georgia and not at Capitol Records, so to speak.
No, that makes total sense. Let's jump over to the chat for a quick sec. We'll say hi to a bunch of people. I think there's a couple questions over there. And when we come back, let's talk a little bit about for the sole fact, and when I'm talking now, I'm saying about, and I'm actually overpronouncing it now because you said it earlier with my Canadian accent, about. When we come back, we'll talk about. No, anyway, seriously, when we come back, we'll talk maybe how Axel's, obviously, your character's life was cut a little short, but I think Axel maybe had a lot of stories yet to tell. And I'd like to, and I'm going to kind of preface this by saying, I don't want to just compare you and Dwight on appearance, Axel and Dwight, not you as a Lew Temple, but Axel and Dwight as a similar character. And I'd like to get your opinion. You can think about this while we talk about questions. Sure. Maybe if Axel survived, would he been a follower of Negan? Would he be, I think really Axel didn't want waves with anybody, and he would serve anybody good and give him his all, whether it be Rick or Negan. But we'll talk about that when we come back to it. Over in the chat, we've got Poo Ninja here as well. Sean Close is here. And Poo Ninja asked a question. Ask him if he knows Ryan Dambro. Apparently he worked in some of the AD departments or production. And I think you mentioned you did know him?
Totally did know Ryan. And as I remember, Ryan was a very capable young man who, I don't know if he's still on the show, if he's still working on that show, but I do know that while he was there and while I was there, he did a great job, and he was going to succeed at whatever he has chose to do or continues to do, and he was solid. And you rely on solid people. That's the thing. As part of the family, you rely on each other on The Walking Dead, and you never leave a man behind or a woman. Mm-hmm. And there's just this camaraderie that everybody is in support, whether it's dehydration or sun exposure or a bug bite or exhaustion, fatigue or mental duress or whatever. There's somebody there to pick you up and say, "Let's go, soldier, we can keep going." That's
cool. That's cool. Well, it's nice that you knew him for sure. And so there's your answer to that one, Ninja. Troy Harris is here as well, too. Let me scroll down. Quentin James is here in the house saying, "Hey, kids, Nocturnal Butterfly is my beautiful better half, running the chat as efficiently as possible every week." Nice. Curtis Murata is here. Single Coil Lover is here. Let me see here. Single Coil Lover says, "Your wife is pretty kick-ass, Eric." I agree with that 100%. Mel O'Brien is here. Says, "Hey from West Cork." Let me see here.
Like Cork County over in Ireland then?
Maybe. I'm not 100% sure. I think he's mentioned before, possibly, but I'm not 100% sure. Walani is here saying, "Hey, Lou." Mel O'Brien says, "I'm blushing." Let me see, who else have I missed here possibly? David Ennis is here. Hello, Eric, Nocturnal Butterfly, and Lou. Let me see here. Nice. Eamon Wyse is here. Nice to see you. A lot of our regulars from our EVH show. Let me see here. Am I miss anybody? I'll keep going here, almost down to the bottom. So let's jump back over to where we were there. Actually, hang on. Maybe I missed somebody. No, I think we're good. So we talked about...
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you. Really much appreciated for sure. So let's talk about, so if if Axel did continue on past season 3, do you think he could have made it through to where we are now and been either a great asset contributor to either Rick's team or Negan's team? I'd like to see where you think Axel would be.
I think the integrity of Axel would be that he would follow the sheriff. I think he would buy into the sheriff's fellowship of let's do the right thing. I think he might question whatever conflict that Rick Grimes may have caused. There's a lot of worthwhile conversation about if we had followed Negan this entire time, maybe Rick Grimes is the villain looking at him.
True.
Depending on which side of the, are they not two sides of the same coin? I don't think that Axel ultimately, as you mentioned, looks for conflict or supports any human suffering. So I think that he would have looked to try to get along typically and survive. That being said, I also recognize Axel being rather active, pragmatic. I don't know that he'd be the guy that would kneel and wait for eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I think he may have been the guy that says our only chance, like the unfortunate people on the flight in Pittsburgh, we've got to rush these guys and go down for the greater good. So fight or flight, I think he fights, but he'd look for anything to not be in that scenario, and probably would have tried to talk Rick out of every advancement. I don't think he's ashamed. Let's take the rubber to the road.
No.
Let's take the fight to the war and look for an alternative. Let's try and make peace. And that doesn't always work. And Rick, I think Rick ultimately, we tried that lesson with the governor. Let's sit down and have a powwow. Let's talk. And it went mad. It went south on him rather quickly, and I think he recognized that. So that being said, I don't think Axel is the man that stands up and assertively takes charge. I think he's a good soldier. I think he's a good foot soldier, a good follower, a good second in command, a good wingman, a good supportive. I think he was there to try to get along. I think he liked to be liked, and he wanted to find some joy. I always look for Axel to sort of lift the day a little bit with a little smirk or a smile, or
yeah,
it's something. Really, is what I was always trying to bring to the show. Because when I say we don't smile much on The Walking Dead, you don't see a lot of lightheartedness, particularly in the last several seasons. My goodness,
it's all serious.
It's been some heavy toil. So no, I don't think that ultimately Axel would find favor with Negan. I think that based on the lessons that he learned from people that he was with for a year in that penitentiary, which were typically, interestingly, minorities in prison. I think he understood the difference between entitlement and reality. So in other words, unlike Dwight, I don't think that he would say this is just what we got to do. And I think when he learned from Oscar, when Oscar said, "I've never begged for my life and I'm not going to start now," I think Axel probably heard that as he was begging for his life as an entitled white guy, because everyone listens to the white guy. I think he started to understand how to survive. I don't think he would be you know, a guy that would conform
to kind of the dark side.
I think he wouldn't concede. I think he would rather throw it all in than as we'd seen some of the others.
Yeah.
Not so overtly. I don't think he'd be hatching plans.
Right.
I think he would just be looking for, you know, beyond horizons. Let's leave. Let's get away from this madness. Let's go. You know, let's let him chase us and escape, as opposed to let's fight him. The thing with Dwight, he's so conflicted because he's been through so much, and he's had to play. You know, he's had to play so many angles that he's just got himself to a place where he doesn't even know who he is.
That's right. No identity anymore.
And I feel like Axel maybe would have pulled him aside and had that conversation with Dwight and said, look, if nothing else, at the end of the day, you're going to meet your maker, and you've got to be able to say, you know, lift your head and say, here's who I am. That's all that's important. And
without lifting your head and saying, I am Negan.
Right. Might have had service that way. You know, I found Abraham to be a stronger character than Axel that way.
Okay.
Of integrity. I don't think that Axel was an ass kicker like Abraham. You know, he wasn't that. You know, Abraham would say, okay, let's go. You know, I'm going to die, but I'm going down swinging, which was kind of his thing. You know, Axel probably is not going to go that way until he had to.
Yeah.
As that goes. So I think he would have tried to make peace, you know. Not Herschel was more reasonable for Axel.
Sure.
Know? I often wonder how Herschel would have gotten through all of this, and I just Rick might have been a little different in tact, you know. But yeah, that's where I think Axel stands with that.
Because wasn't it? I got to refresh my memory. Wasn't it season 3 where they started to initiate the council? Where it wasn't just Rick's decision all the time, it was Carol and Daryl and the council.
Yeah, everybody had a bit of a say. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the governor kind of blew that all apart. And Rick said, I tried that and it didn't work. And also Rick was going through a little, you know, mental duress.
Yeah.
Of, you know, PTSD with, you know, the visions of the ghosts of Lori, and having lost his wife, and Carl, and the baby being born, Judith, and a lot of difficulty. And you know, I find some of the characters now confusing, and I think that's brilliant because humans are confusing. I just don't understand you, you know. And sometimes Josh's character, McDermott, can confuse me because I'm always like, what would Axel do with this guy?
Eugene.
Yeah. And so I feel like he wouldn't placate. He would call bullshit, you know, and he'd say, no, that's not, you know, that's not. Look, I'm smarter than that. I'm not going down that road. So,
I could see Axel saying, "Just speak English, mustache or a mullet man." Yeah,
totally. Yeah, let's shoot straight here. You know, don't bullshit a bullshitter. So I think he would have found his way. That being said, I don't think that he would be spending as much time trying to survive as Eugene or Jeffrey, you know, alternate agendas. Let's say that. You know, I think Axel wears hard on his sleeve, and I think
for sure.
You know, and he's certainly not the man that Abraham was. But to me, Abraham didn't have a lot of agenda. You know, he was straight down the road. You know, and I appreciated that. But the complicated characters are delicious.
They sure,
You know,
they sure are.
Jeffrey is very unctuous and just, that he's been dethroned. I still maintain the governor is one of my favorite characters.
He was probably one of the overall best villains, and something that you could never peel back. You peel back all the layers, and you still haven't even really discovered what he had yet to go.
I really enjoyed David Morrissey's presentation of the governor because I thought it was so intellectual and interesting. I also think that Jeffrey Dean Morgan's pitch of Negan is delicious and yummy.
Yeah.
And so much fun. And I found so much of the audience that just responds to that, and I'm like, wow, you just love the abuse then, don't you? Yes.
I guess so.
Yeah, so I miss Axel. And clearly there's no telling really, because Mr. Kirkman had built Axel a little lascivious as well.
Mm-hmm.
A little, let's not forget, in the graphic novels, he did take the twins out into the woods and did some bad things. There was some dark side that Axel could have exposed himself.
Yeah.
Had we kept going through the seasons, and there was discussion of that topically. We opted to just maintain sort of a likability all the way through, but I could see that a couple seasons down the road, maybe it would have been interested to turn, maybe what he is wasn't necessarily on the label, so to speak.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's some cayenne pepper in here. I don't see that.
Yeah, a little bit hidden agenda. I think that's probably smart that they did it, because we all look back at Axel with kind of a loving memory, and and someone in the chat here says, Walani says he wanted the Carol and Axel relationship to develop. Exactly, a lot of people were, and that was a very, very sweet and innocent thing, and a lot of people loved that. Another couple comments. Chris Shaw, a good friend of mine, he says, "Hey Lou, loved your character, well played, loved the show, rock on, watching last season now as a recap." Eric Gruber is here as well too. So let's kind of fast forward. We're coming up to 10 o'clock. We have about 30 minutes left to go. I'm going to try to get as much in as we can. So again, spoiler warnings for anyone that's kind of caught up. I just got to put that out there. If it's out there, it's out there. We're trying certainly not to spoil anything. But first of all, are you fully caught up on season 8?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I figured you would. I mean, I know that's a dumb question, but I thought I would ask you anyways before I get too far, because I don't want to spoil anything for you either. So what were your thoughts? Here again, there's a lot of material that, changes from the comic material, and some things, it's great that they do it. Sometimes it's kind of like, ooh, that's weird, and keeps everyone on their toes. But, losing a major character like Carl, who has a vital role in the comics with Negan, what were your thoughts when, maybe you heard about that before the average person like us did, but what are your thoughts when you discovered that?
Well, there's thoughts as an audience member, and then there's thoughts as a part of the family. Mm-hmm. And so as an audience member, I think I was sort of preparing myself for Carl to be the last man standing. I was preparing myself, I suppose, for, in my mind, Carl to be at the bedside of old man Rick, his father, in passing, in all some crazy dream. In my mind, I think I was setting myself up for that future.
Okay.
So I was taken back when that happened. That being said, as a family member, I recognized that the actor Chandler Riggs is a young man with an entire career ahead of him, and not just in the entertainment industry, but as a college student and as a young man in life. Maybe it was time for him to get an opportunity to go out and explore those types of things while he's still
young,
had some options and opportunities to occur. You have to remember, he's been on the show a long time. Mm-hmm. in my experience, I been exposed to a child actor that's had to do so much heavy lifting as Chandler Riggs, and do it with such grace and such sincerity and support of the character and the story. You know, no child should ever have to really do anything that he's had to do. And he did it. And he did it with great credit, great applause. So I recognize maybe he needs to go off and do other things. He loves music. He's making music now.
DJ stuff and that.
Yep, he's a very fine actor. He'll be great on anything he does, and he's doing film, and we miss him dearly on The Walking Dead. So that it was a shock to me, and yet
you understood too, though.
I do understand if in fact there's the other side, the pragmatic side of a young actor maybe needing the experience. But it also did inform me a little bit about how much I don't know where the show is going.
Okay. And
if nothing else, it should tell us as audience members, we don't know. And we better, strap our seatbelts on to take this ride that we know nothing about, that we may think, I know how this is going to go. This is, if nothing else, Carl being taken out totally rocks our world. We should know that we don't know anything. We don't know how it's going to go, and we can't be sure of anything. And I think we needed it at that point in time. And so I give production, I give the show a lot of credit for doing something as bold as that. Certainly not a popular choice.
No.
Everyone loves Chandler. And I think it was a bit of a wake-up call for all of us as audience. Yep. By the way, we call each other audience members. We don't really say fans. I think we talked about this. We find that the audience is so much a part of the show. It's a discredit to call them fans, because they're not fans. They're part of the show.
They're members. Yeah.
So they turn up every week, so they're part of the show. They're not. They're the other half of the show, and they're not fans.
I like that.
That's not, we call them the audience, and we're part of the audience, all of us. So
that's very kind, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was a blow, but and a bold one, but exactly the type of thing I think we needed as an audience.
Well, speaking of shaking it up, so we go a little further, not much further, mind you. Now, and I know Andrew Lincoln had talked several times, several seasons before about, I do want to have an exit plan. There is a plan. I don't know when it is, but I do have an out. I see myself taking it out down the road. And it wasn't very far after that he finally said, told the team that, okay, this is going to be it. What were your thoughts on that? Probably just equally as shocked, or even more so, or?
It was hard for me to get my head around not following the sheriff based on my experience, everything I had done in showing up to the show and leaving the show was all roads lead to Rick. And now if they don't, what's the point? That to me is just an example of the evolution and opening up of the show. That's how much the show has evolved. So for us, old, originals, us OGs that were there from day one, we've got to give a wider berth to the idea that, it keeps going. And how do we deal with it? Well, they're going to help us. Mr. Kirkman and Miss Kang will help us understand that. As far as Andrew Lincoln goes, not unlike Chandler, an incredibly gifted actor that can and needs to quite possibly take a break and can do many, many, many other things, and will when he chooses. I think sometimes you recognize when to be able to pass the baton, and I found or I find that Andrew Lincoln is the type of artist and the type of person that would entirely say, I'm. It's not that I'm going out on top. It's not that I'm going out because I'm tired. It's not, but it's right for the show, and he would never do anything to harm this because he built it. He and Sarah and John sat down the very first week of this show with Mr. Darabont. We're doing a pilot about, at that time they called them zombies, not walkers.
That's right.
We're doing a set about zombies. We got 6 episodes. No one's ever going to watch this show. Let's do the best darn job that we can do so that maybe after this thing gets canceled, we'll get jobs somewhere else.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it's the number one thing ever. And that's never changed. And so they deserve credit. And Andrew would never slight that. And so if this is a decision that he has come to with the production, the powers that be, then it's right, and it will be right, and they'll handle it right and make it right. And I'm excited to see how it goes. I'm still, if we're putting a soundtrack to it, I'm using the song Dreamweaver.
Okay. Okay.
I'm still in the mindset of something ethereal, Eric. I don't know. What about you?
I can't know. I don't know if I can give you an example of a song, but I feel the emotion for sure. And I was just going to say, like I told you earlier in the program, starting to watch season 1. This is what I really, and this is, okay, Angela's going to be taking us back to that feel of the first couple seasons, maybe more so just season 1, starting and an end. And watching only the first 3 episodes of season 1, I could not get over the emotion and the soundtrack. Okay, now the dialogue was great. There was, shorter dialogue, but the soundtrack was like it grabbed you by the, grabbed you and didn't let you go. And it didn't have to be speaking on the screen. The music took you that places. And then I went and I got very really caught up in the moment, knowing that where Rick is going now, and seeing that struggle from day 1, waking up in the hospital, getting down the street down towards Morgan, every obstacle he had to encounter, and survived everything, and the emotion and the soundtrack, like I mentioned. And then you start thinking that he's not going to be there. Then it's like, holy cow, this is even like 10 times more powerful than what it is. It really shakes you. But, it's that thing where, like you said, I think you said it perfectly, that he's not doing it like, yes, he is in one way leaving for his family too. That's great, but he's leaving because the story has to go in another direction. And at first I was kind of embarrassed that I was one of those bandwagon jumpers where I was like, okay, the show's done. It's completely done. It's going to suck. And I love the show, and I hated to even say that, but I was one of them thinking it's done. It's going to be done before the end of season 9. Then I started to really think about it, and AMC was actually pretty smart about this. They started conditioning us. It's almost like, I won't get into politics, but the politicians will start conditioning you that there's going to be a new law coming out. Eventually, when the law comes out, hey, it's cool, I like it, So AMC is letting us know Rick Grimes' final episodes, and either they're leaking out some stuff or the fans are leaking out stuff, but they certainly weren't debunking some of the things that were being leaked out. So we're conditioned and we're okay with it a little bit. But I think it's going to be possibly some of the best material we've ever seen, and I certainly wasn't saying that a month ago.
Yeah, I think so. I think the task of the escape for Andrew Lincoln, for the departure of Rick Grimes, is monumental. Every bit as how do we introduce this character? How do we introduce this concept and get people on board? Every bit as much as the effort to do that, I think the effort to undo it, so to speak, but also keep it moving forward. So in other words, not backtracking, but whoosh it forward. When I say move it forward, I mean keep moving it forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're capable of keeping up. I think it's going to move to a point where we're not going to be able to keep up, and we're going to be spun, and then it'll settle with us, and it's going to keep happening. I think somehow, I don't know how, but somehow this show encapsulates life.
Mm-hmm.
and very, very capably, and in the moment's time, it's perfect. And all the upheaval of Negan can't be that far off from all the upheaval that we're sustaining in America, in the world. I've always maintained that walkers are just a metaphor for your daily problems, like your mortgage or your credit, your debt.
Very good point.
You know, I think the difficulty of life is not unlike difficulty of surviving in that scenario. So, so I think the show is always pertinent and apropos, and I think we'll be surprised. You know, like, oh, aha, oh, I think we'll all experience something.
Yeah,
it's really incredible, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud to know the people doing that, including being part of the audience. Yeah.
And I don't think we've seen the last of the Grimes family either, because what it's sounding like right now is coming into season 9, it's going to be like about an 18-month time jump from where we left off, and then after Rick's exit, it's going to be about a 5-year jump. So what's Judith right now? Somewhere around 3 or 4.
Yeah.
You know, so she could be, you know, the younger, like a, you know, kind of almost teen Carl. And I think we'll see something together between her and Michonne, obviously being, you know, kind of her new mom, and looking after her. I think there's going to be the more Grimes to see yet.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hoping that what we're seeing is just that, hope. I've always maintained when the show loses hope, the show is lost.
Yeah.
And so when there's no hope, and the show's brought us there so many times, and yet then it continues to give us something to hang our hope hat on. And so I do think that if we kind of maintain the Judith development, the Michonne matriarch.
Because as a flip to the comics, during your season, Judith and Laurie were taken out by the governor, correct?
Yeah.
During your time, because they were escaping the prison, and you know the bullet took them both out at the same time. So that's a quite twist.
Yeah. So, and I think some of the other characters are going to shoulder the burden of Rick Grimes. Will be, you know, I think we'll celebrate as opposed to mourn. How's that?
Yeah, no, I like that. I agree with that too. It's probably going to be a moment where I'm sure there's going to be many Kleenexes shared amongst the families, but then the grieving it'll be a quick one. It'll be quick because we're going to come back the following season, not the following season. Actually, no, it's going to feel like a following season, the following episode, because there's that time jump. And they're very smart with that, because it's so many years after, technically in the TV world, we can kind of feel that a little bit too. And we're like, okay, well, it's happy. Everyone's doing their rebuilding. They got plants, they got vegetables, you know. So that's smart.
Move through, yeah. And we had an experience. I've always felt one of the things, and I've expired a lot on film and television, Eric. As you
I know.
I've always honored death, and I think this will be an honor of the passing of, however, Rick Grimes leaves us. I think it'll be entirely honorable, and I think we will have, as an audience, the opportunity to honor and grieve, but also to salute.
Yes.
And so I think the show will serve us this way. I don't think he'll be taken from us unceremoniously.
No, I know. I think it's going to be beautiful. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Here's a funny question to kind of bring us back around. Obviously, are you a fan of Dave Chappelle?
Yeah.
Okay, I love Dave Chappelle. That man can make me like, I like the way he just yells, and he yells something twice, and he makes you laugh. But a good friend of ours, Single Coil Lover, she says, as a non-fan, the only question I can ask Lew is, what did he think about the Dave Chappelle skit? You know, the eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
I thought it was hilarious. I mean, everything David does is hilarious. You know, Dave and Norman Reedus are actually quite good friends.
I did not know that. I know Norman's friend was a lot of guys on my scene, the metal guys and rock guys, but I did not know that.
Oh, yes. There's an artistry that Chappelle has because he's incredibly talented.
He sure is.
That Norman likes to hang with some really great artistry. So yes, hilarious and smart. I would say it was also very, very smart, and clearly she liked it as well.
Yeah, I think so. She did.
Yes.
And
I think it's perfect. Sometimes that's the other thing. Sometimes we can't take ourselves too serious.
Exactly.
Need the piss taken out of us a little bit here now and again.
Yep.
And Saturday Night Live in particular should be honored to have them spoof a little bit.
I know, that's right. That is a rite of passage as well too. We're finally on Saturday Night Live, as a spoof. And as a bit of a spoof too, where was this one? Troy Harris says, and I can see this now that he says this. He says, I still say you make a great Daryl Earnhardt. I can see a little bit of resemblance, a little bit too.
That's fantastic. Number 3. Yeah, let's do that story. Daryl Earnhardt, that was great. Yes.
Wicked.
And the hero, that guy was solid. And Dale Jr.'s done really well too. I think Dale just retired, didn't he?
I don't know. I don't follow NASCAR much. I used to watch a little bit, but I don't know enough about it. I would watch local stock cars here in my small town, but never really watched NASCAR that much. Cool sport, just don't know anything about it. I know the big names, like like the household names, and obviously those are a couple.
It's a lot like country dancing. You just keep taking a left-hand turn.
Yeah, that's right.
Keep turning left, and you'll be fine.
Turning left. That's right. Yeah, exactly. There was a question I was going to ask you. What was it? Oh, yeah, Fear the Walking Dead. I can't believe I didn't think about this. Are you much of a Fear fan?
Interesting with Fear. When I first started, I didn't connect with it because I felt like, one, we had known so much prior to, we kept sort of needing to instruct them. Don't look under the bed. Don't go in the barn. Don't go into the woods. Don't you understand? And that wasn't fair because that show entirely deserves to be its own hybrid, make it its own. And now I've come to find out, which I don't see it as much, to be clear. It has found its own audience. It stands on its own 2 feet, and it's entirely popular and kicking butt. And that, to me, is exciting, that the show, on its own merit, is very good. And obviously, it's got some cross-pollination in management and in production, and even in a cast member like Morgan and Lenny James. So I'm excited for it, and I might try to seek it out and get engaged. I just didn't connect with it initially. I felt like we had too much information. We knew better than they did. It created a lot of anxiety for me.
Okay, that makes sense.
Don't you know? And now that hasn't happened. So I would say this. I give the show a lot of credit for doing what it knew it could do.
Okay.
I was like, man, they missed a lot of opportunities. They could have taken us down this entire Eugene rabbit hole of here's how the virus started, here's what it is, blah, blah, blah. They didn't do any of that. I'm disappointed. But no, what they're doing is right, so good on them. How about you?
Well, here's my thing. Okay, so first of all, before I say too much, how far are you in Fear?
First season.
Okay, so I won't say too much. Now, the first 2 seasons, it was, and I just did a review on this last night. It's going to be up on the YouTube channel as part of my secondary thing to Rockin' Dead here tonight. And the season finale ended last night. I won't say anything towards it. Just I was a little disappointed. The first 2 seasons were kind of this is enough to get me by while we're waiting for Walking Dead to pick back up. And it was pretty cool. And the difference is, as you know right away too, instantly from Fear to The Walking Dead, there was no long-lasting villain. We didn't have a governor. We didn't have a Negan. We didn't have anything like that. And if there was a villain, it was a 2-day villain kind of thing. And as much as that was a bummer, it was actually kind of cool too, because pacing was moving on fast. Now, cast members, as you know, as we talked about with Walking Dead, it goes to show you that the universe, the whole Walking Dead umbrella, is not afraid to keep people out. And I won't say anything more than that. But so that's cool. But there is a fellow, and this is certainly this isn't going to be a spoiler, but there's a character that comes onto the show. I'm wondering if you've ever worked with him, and I absolutely love him.
Garrett Dillahunt.
Geez, John Dory. Have you worked with him?
Yeah. No, I never have. Garrett and I have never worked. We've certainly auditioned for a lot of the same things.
Okay.
He's had far more success than I. He's a fantastic actor. He can carry his own show. He's been great in film for a long time. He played 2 major characters in Deadwood. He's that good. I can remember, I want to say he lobbied for the governor.
No way.
I want to say, or Negan. It might have been Negan, actually. It might have been Negan.
Okay.
But he's shown up as John Dory, who's an entirely interesting character.
He is.
Beautifully interesting.
Yeah. Now,
Garrett's interesting. Garrett could just sit there and you'd be interested in him.
He is. Now, did you see? This is a great movie, and I think possibly the only other. It's not a movie. It's a cable show, and I don't think I've seen him in too much else than that. But Hand of God with Ron Perlman.
Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like he kind of plays like kind of a mute a little bit, you know, kind of an assistant, a helper, or whatever, kind of a servant, and you know, kind of gets the grunt jobs of everything, and gets a lot of blood on his hands, and some roles he has to play. And I absolutely loved him in that. Then when I saw him, the first time I saw him on Fear the Walking Dead, I was like, where have I seen that guy before? And then when he spoke, I was like, oh man. And I'm not sure if it's, you know, he's the ex-sheriff like Rick. Maybe that's my fascination. He's a sharpshooter like Rick, you know, that it's a great story, but man, did he do a lot for that show. You'll love it when you get caught up to that.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but great stuff, and he's super excited about having done it, and you know, I give AMC credit for bringing in. They do 2 things. They bring in just the right namey types, and then they discover a lot of people as well. Mm-hmm. So they don't go too big, like, holy cow, John Travolta's on The Walking Dead?
Yeah.
You know, they don't go too big, and yet they all of a sudden bring in somebody that we don't know anything about. Cooper Andrews as Jerry, and he's like, wow, this guy's great, you know?
Yeah.
And I think they're really good, and that's casting. Casting, that's Sharon Bialy and Sherry Thomas.
Yeah.
That do the casting here in Los Angeles, and they're really good at what they do. The reason they're really good at what they do is they've been doing it a long time, and they know all of us.
That's right.
And it's not just that they know us. They know that there's people out there they don't know, and they go and discover. Mm-hmm. And so what happens in that realm is they reach out to what's known as local casting, which is the Fincannon family.
Okay.
Lisa and Craig Fincannon out of North Carolina cast a lot of some of these newer people, like Emilio Austin or like Cooper Andrews.
Yeah.
And they find some people that we can't find, and they nail it, man. They nail it. Chandler Riggs out of Atlanta, and they nail it. And the Melissa McBride. Actually, Frank Darabont had been knowing Melissa for a long time.
Yeah.
So the casting is someone, out of everyone we talk about, they get the least amount of credit, and they deserve as much credit as anybody.
Oh, agreed. And a lot of people probably know this, that watch Walking Dead. They're probably fans of Breaking Bad. I mean, that's probably my second favorite show.
Yeah.
And that, I think that was a great example of a show when it ended at a great, perfect time. Could have been better. But Sharon was obviously key on that for casting.
Yeah.
And wasn't Melissa, like I know the whole connection with Melissa and Frank, but wasn't Melissa herself involved in casting somewhat a little bit?
She was casting out of Atlanta, and she was reading, they were doing a film for Frank Darabont called The Mist.
Great movie. I was just going to say it.
Stephen King, I believe.
Yeah.
And she was reading all these actors and reading with all these actors, and he was like, doggone, you read really well. She goes, well, you know, I'm an actor. A lot of the actors that I know out of Atlanta could tell you how often she auditioned for things. He said, well, I've got a place for you in The Mist. And then when it came around, coming back full circle to the Walking Dead, he had an idea for this lady that he wanted to build and perform with Carol.
Yeah, and bringing Laurie Holden over too as Andrea. She was in The Mist as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
That was a very dark movie, wasn't it?
It was dark.
Yeah, but cool. It was cool overall. So as we wrap up here, we've got probably about 4 minutes left. just your thoughts on the new villains, I don't know, villains, I guess we'll go with. What if we got these whisperers coming in? We won't say too much about them, but what do you think? Do you think this could possibly be one of the biggest villains we've seen to date? Is it something that will overshadow Negan?
I feel like what we can say without spoiler alert is all the things that have been announced. So we know the Whisperer headed up by a very fantastic gentleman, Ryan Hurst.
Yep, Sons of Anarchy.
Sons of Anarchy. And I did Rango with Ryan.
Oh, right. That's very cool.
Yeah, I did Mr. Fergus down at the general store. And he played one of the Gophers. He played one of the Gophers. And Ryan is a really interesting guy, just like Garrett Dillahunt, like Jeffrey Dean Morgan, like David Morrissey, like Lew Temple, like Andrew Lincoln, all in a different way. So he's rather subtextual. In other words, it's not the Opie thing. It's not going to be real overt, and it's going to be kind of it's going to simmer. And so, no, he's not going to be like Negan. So it's not going to be all out there, but it's going to be there. And it's going to be there in a really kind of quiet, smoldering, scary way, and powerful. He's very, very, very powerful, and he has a physicality that can catch you off guard. He's a big man, and he can throw it around.
Yeah.
So he's not as blustery as what Negan's going to be. He's not as he's really intellectual, and you'll think, well, this is some hillbilly, but he's got you figured out before you've got you figured out. So I think that will be quite fun. And the people that they put around him, I'm going to say, we're going to get into this realm of we don't know. We don't know what this whole Whisperer group to me is going to be dealing with someone a group of people we can't put our finger on.
Yeah.
And almost like dealing with a group of Michael Myers.
Yep.
You know? And maybe not be able to reason with. So I think that's going to be entirely it's going to keep us off balance, that's for sure. So yes, I'm entirely excited. And what that might do is it might, as we talk about tone and music, and you put out a rock and roll album, and all of a sudden now you're going to be playing strings, you know, and it's just so different and creepy. And I think tonally we're gonna experience something else, which might serve some of the other things we've talked about tonight. So I'm excited.
Me too, and I think we're right at the 10:30 mark here. I don't think we could have ended it in a better, more positive way. I'm really looking forward to it. 6 days away from now, and I think there's probably going to be one, maybe possibly the highest attended. I know the ratings have dipped and changed a little bit over time, but I think we're going full circle again. I think that could be the ticket. I know with Ryan as well too, like you were saying too, I think it's going to bring another female audience in as well too. I mean, everyone's watching, all the women are watching Norman Reedus and all these, all the other, the male heartthrob guys. But Ryan obviously brings a lot of the women followers from Sons of Anarchy and things like that. I think it's going to be a great casting. And to go back one last thing, when you talked about The Walking Dead doesn't pick any actor that's too out there, too big. And, this may sound silly comparing here, but I'm sure you're probably a Star Wars fan. I'm a Star Wars fan. What male on the planet isn't? And females too. Yeah. But, I found it tough for a while to accept even actors that I loved, like Samuel L. Jackson. I love Samuel L. Jackson, but he's in Star Wars. And I just think, okay, well, now that just feels so weird. He's a great actor, love him to death, but it just made it feel weird for Star Wars, and now it kind of dates Star Wars. If you had, I don't know, Kurt Brosnan or something, I don't need anybody. Just stick somebody that's even bigger than that. Just pick somebody and stick him in The Walking Dead. It's almost like, okay, this isn't totally out of it. It's like Waldo. you know?
Yeah, I think so too. That's why I think they do such a good job of picking just the right person that encapsulates that role. And Ryan Hurst is the kind of guy you forget that it's Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to see Opie at all. You know,
That's
Jeffrey
right.
Dean Morgan, you're not going to see what you've seen before. And I think they're very good at building that in that approach. I don't know what Star Wars guy I would say could cross over quite. Although Oscar Isaac
Mm-hmm.
is a very good actor. This guy he could do anything. He could slide in without us even knowing he was there.
Yeah.
He's been that pilot, you know, that pilot in the new series. Shoot, I don't know. There's a few of them. There's so many players on The Walking Dead. I'm interested to see what happens to Jesus. I'm so interested to see, you know, where Ezekiel and Jerry end up with Melissa. Obviously, Michonne is strong. You know, there's some Lauren, you know, or Maggie.
Yep.
You know, what's she going to do over there? How's you know what's going to happen? We're going to find out, Eric. That's one thing we know. We're going to get to find out.
I think it's great. And as something as you talked about too with casting directors, I think as we close out, let's say this. If you happen to be attending a party, maybe with your friends on the weekend to watch the premiere, you know, where you've got a couple of people in your living room, you're at a big event, a formal thing, wherever it is, you know, at the very end of the night, you're going to be clapping and crying and everything else. Well, not necessarily crying right away, but clapping. Remember to have a few applause and some rounds for the casting directors, as you say, because those are those unsung heroes that we don't really get to appreciate. And without them, it would be a completely different world of cinema for sure, and TV.
They keep us surprised and delighted with their opportunities or their selects, I like to say.
Exactly.
Dude, this has been great. I hope this was a perfect inaugural run for your show, Rocking Dead on Rocking Dead Television.
It was fantastic. I couldn't have asked for better. I mean, you totally nailed it. And like I say, I wouldn't want anyone else to kick this off with me. And I appreciate you so very much with your very valuable time. I know we tried to sketch out a window to get this to work. And do me a favor, come next Sunday night after the show's over, send me an email with your thoughts and we'll trade some thoughts back and forth. But it was a real pleasure and I wish you the best of success on all your future endeavors. Down below as well, everyone, there's 3 or 4 links. We've shared them in the chat here as well throughout the evening with Nocturnal Butterfly. Go check out what Lew has to do. And Lew, be safe out there, have fun, and let's look forward to season premiere in 6 days from tonight.
Well done. Keep rocking, Eric. Keep banging it, man. You're doing good.
Thank you so much, my friend. That means the world to me. And don't go away. I'll say goodbye to you off the air. Everyone, thank you so much. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Share it. Subscribe if you're new here. And I promise to work just as hard to keep you as a subscriber as I did to get you. We will see you very soon. Join the Walking Dead family. Talk to you next time. Cheers.
Rocking Dead is brought to you by Design39 Media. Visit design39media.com for all your website, photography, and video production needs. Microphones for Rocking Dead are provided by Rode Microphones. Get your Rocking Dead swag available in the Broadstash Boutique at broadstash.com. Thank you for watching and please subscribe.